In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make sure that your seedlings remain strong and grow really good until you can get them transplanted outdoors. If you have ever had trouble with seedlings that were weak, or by the time they were big enough and you went to transplant them outside in their regular growing spot, they died, I'm going to help you troubleshoot and walk you through it all today. My name is Melissa K. Norris. I am the author of Handmade and the Made from Scratch Life, as well as the founder of the Pioneering Today Academy. And we raise about 65% of our own fruits and vegetables. And you do not need a greenhouse in order to have successful seedlings. Now, you see here, I have got my grow light, and a grow light has been the key thing in order for me to grow strong seedlings because I live in the Pacific Northwest and I don't have a good southern exposure window. And even if I did have southern exposure, we just don't get enough good sunlight in the early and late spring in order for me to rely solely on sunlight. So we're going to talk about the things you can watch for with your seedlings to know if they're getting enough light and if they're looking weak, and how you can quickly correct those things so that your plants stay nice and strong and you get a great harvest come summertime. So make sure that you hit subscribe so that you get notified and access to all of our videos when they come out brand new each week. Okay, are you ready? Let's take it to the plants.
Now you may be thinking, Melissa, I thought we were talking about growing and starting our things indoors, and you are standing outside where it's beautiful and gorgeously sunny. And you're correct. We are talking about growing our plants indoors, and I'm going to be showing you my grow light and things that you can do to combat weak plants that all have to do with light. One of the things that we're going to be talking about is hardening off your seeds or getting them transitioned to coming outside and being outside when you eventually are ready to plant them outdoors, because that's where a lot of people run into trouble with their seedlings. So if you didn't watch the first video where we actually started our tomato seeds, you can go back and catch that. I'll put the link in the video description as well. But this is our tomatoes, and here are our peppers. I've got basil here, Brussels sprouts here, and then I still have my cauliflower seeds are taking longer to germinate, and they're back here. The rest of these are ready to move on to bigger containers to continue their growing process. When your baby plants first start, they're going to have 2 leaves. When they start to have these 2 leaves that come up, those aren't their true leaves. You will begin to see when they develop their second set of leaves. Those are their true leaves. And that is the sign that you want to make sure that they are not covered anymore by plastic. Full light, that's when they need to move from their spot where you've got them germinating, and they need to be getting their full amount of light. It may be from the sunlight or it may be a grow light. And we're going to talk about the differences there and how you can tell if they are getting enough light. They also need to be in bigger containers. Now, I like to just use these egg cartons when they are germinating because it's easy for me to keep these covered and the moisture level correct in order for the seeds to germinate. But there's simply not enough soil here for these to continue to grow and to have good root development. So this is when we're going to move them into larger containers. And there are so many options available. Here you can see these are just red solo cups, and I'm going to be moving some of my peppers and tomatoes into these containers. You can use even a deeper, this is a lettuce container. Now I won't be using this part and covering it because they need to have good airflow after this part, but this is a deeper, so you can see I've got several inches, about 3 inches of soil is ideal. I'm going to be moving the Brussels sprouts over into here, and Brussels sprouts are a lot more cold hardy than our tomatoes and peppers, and I'm going to begin hardening these off to actually plant out in the garden over the next week. So I'm not really too concerned that this isn't a huge container with a lot of soil depth, because they're only going to be housed in here for about a week before they actually go in the ground. Over here, these are peat pots, so you can use peat pots. I'm not a huge fan of the peat pots. I do have some here, mainly because I don't think that they break down fast enough in the soil, and so I end up not even using them and planting them in the ground, though that's kind of one of the things that people like about them, or one of the things that they're advertised for. I just don't find that they break down fast enough for the roots, so I end up shredding them or just popping the soil out and not even using these at planting time. But I was really after this depth of container, and they came in there, so we'll go ahead and use them for this time. Then you also can have these type of systems where you've got the tray beneath so that you've got your water there, and then the actual root in the soil that the plants are in, and these little cells stays above the water line. So you can see I've got lots of different options here. So you can use what you have on hand resource wise. I'm going to be putting some of the basil in here because I think it's a fun little container, and you want to judge it by its root system. So basil is not going to have anywhere the root system nor get near as large as my tomatoes will, as the peppers are not going to get as big as the tomatoes either. So I also gauge on how long they're going to be in these containers. As I said, the Brussels sprouts, those are going to be going in the ground within a week, so they can go in this smaller container. My tomatoes are going to be spending probably another 4 weeks in the house, so I'm going to be transferring them to these. And I'm also going to show you a fun tip on tomatoes when you are planting them that helps them develop a better root system. So even though I planted multiple seeds in a lot of these cells, not all of them have germinated. This cell, for example, only has 1 tomato, while this one apparently got some extra seeds, and I have got 5, 6 tomatoes growing in this one. So when they're small like this, you're going to be surprised by the root system that they actually have. So I just use my fingers, and we're going to kind of push up on the bottom here and then carefully separate these guys out. So here I have got this guy, and you can see how long his little root system is. So when they're at this size, you can put 2 to a container if you need to. And when I'm transplanting them this small, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 in this container. So we're going to get him in the soil. And then if these guys are kind of already connected, so I'm going to gently separate their root systems out. And this is where it's key to use that potting soil and not something heavy, so that I can easily remove these without damaging their roots and separate them from one another. So when you want to plant tomatoes, the interesting thing is they will develop root systems all the way up their stem if it's in the dirt. So you're going to notice that I have not filled these cups all the way up, and I did that for a specific reason. As this tomato grows, I can continue adding new soil in this, and that's going to be really helpful because I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to be able to get these in the ground depending upon my weather. So if I need to, I can continue to add soil, and that will just continue to develop a stronger root system and a bigger root system for my tomato. So we need to go ahead and get our soil damp. And I make sure when I'm doing 2 to a cup that I've got them separated on either side. So these guys are a little bit bigger, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit more soil already to this cup. So here we've got our Brussels sprouts in our egg carton. So same thing, we're going to spread these guys out, detangle them a little bit into individual plants, being careful not to damage the roots. And we're going to plant them a little bit deeper than where they are. You can see this guy's a little bit curly there, so I'm going to plant him just a little bit deeper. So this is my grow light setup. So you can see this is a relatively small area tucked up in the corner of our living room. You do not need a huge area in order to grow a decent amount of plants. So this grow light we have had for going on, I think 5 or 6 years now, and it's the exact same light bulb that came with it. I've never had to replace it. I will have a link in the video descriptions to this exact one if you want to check it out. The important thing when you're using a grow light is that it is a full spectrum light bulb, so that it has the same UVB and UVA wavelengths that the sunlight does. I have got
all of my tomato plants and pepper plants for a year. And believe it or not, what you see before you will provide us a family of 4 with a year's worth of tomato products that take us all the way through. Down here in the solo cups, I have got 2 tomato seedlings per cup. I've still got a few tomatoes and peppers in the beginning little egg carton here because I still have some peppers that are sprouting, so I'm not quite ready to transplant them. And I actually ran out of my solo cups that I'm going to use for all of the tomatoes this year. And then the basil is slow growing and it has not gotten its first set of true leaves yet. So it's okay to keep in this small of the egg carton container that we started those seeds in for a little bit longer. One of the biggest reasons that you will have weak plants or weak seedlings is when they begin to get really leggy. Now, these are not leggy, and neither are the ones that we've got down here. But oftentimes, what I mean by leggy is they have a really long, skinny stem, and they are reaching to whatever the light source is. So if you have them in a windowsill somewhere, and they're getting really leggy, and they're reaching towards the sun, they're not getting enough light. This can also happen even with a grow light. Now, right now, you see that this light is several inches above the plants. If you have your grow light too far up, then you can also have leggy plants. We don't want them to be reaching for the light. It's really important that they get light. Now, for direct sunlight for your vegetables, you really need about 8 hours of good sunlight a day. When you're using a grow light, you need close to 16 hours of light. So don't think that because you're using a grow light that you just can have it on for 8 hours and that's going to be enough. So you either need to have the grow light on for more hours if you don't have it on for about 16 hours a day. I turn mine on when I get up 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and then it goes off about 10:30 p.m. at night, and it stays on all day. The other reason, as I said, the light is not close enough. So one of the great things about a grow light like this is it works on a pulley system. So I can adjust as my plants grow. I can move it up, or if they need more light, I can easily move it down. So all I have to do is just release this, and that light will come down on the pulley system. And ideally about 1 to 2 inches above the plants is where you're going to want to have the light at. So you can see it's right over top of the cups. But what about the plants that are still in the egg carton? The light is definitely not just a few inches above that. When you have different size containers as we've got going now, then you can put a box or a block of wood or something just to raise this up higher. So I'm going to have to go find a box in order to prop that up closer to the grow light. Another reason that you will have weak plants when you do your seedlings indoors is because outside, when they're outside, they're exposed to wind, to air movement, to rain, lots of things that is moving the plant around. And when it gets moved around on the top of the plant, it actually makes the roots go down deeper to anchor the plant and to give it a good foundation. So when we are indoors like we are here, this is a pretty controlled environment. I mean, you may get a breeze with the door opening or something like that, but you're not going to get the movement and the exposure that you will, obviously, if it's outside. So the easiest solution that I have found for that is when I'm turning the light on, when I'm turning the light off, when I'm watering it, checking it for moisture level, is to just take your hand and run it over the top of the plants. Now, as these get bigger, this is actually a lot easier to do, but it just takes less than a minute, and that's gonna help whenever you walk by or think about the plants. Just run your fingers over the top, and that's going to act as movement. That's probably the easiest solution. Another thing that you can do is you can get a fan, and you can put the fan near the plants on low, and you're going to want to check to make sure that it's not blowing too hard on them, especially when they're in their really infant stage like they are here. And just have it on for a couple of times a day. It doesn't need to be on all of the time for airflow. Airflow is really important too. Sometimes if you're keeping your soil too wet, and it can be a fine line because when they're first starting to germinate, we always want to make sure the top of our soil that they stay really moist and are in a greenhouse environment. But if you keep the soil too wet because we don't have airflow, sometimes you'll see little bits of white fuzz starts to grow on the top of the soil. That's an indication that your soil's too wet and you need more airflow. And the fan can work great, just like for 20 minutes even, on top, and then you'll see that will disappear, that fuzz. It doesn't really harm the plants. A lot of times I'll get it especially close to the end of the season when they've been in the dirt for a long time, and just put a fan on there, or, which is going to bring me to my next point where we talk about hardening off and planting these outdoors, put them outside with some air movement. That will take care of it too. Another reason that when you start your plants at home and indoors that a lot of people lose them or they don't make it all the way through is because they don't do what you call hardening off. So hardening off is when we slowly transition the plant from this indoor controlled environment to the outdoor environment. So if I were to take these outside right now, well, one, it's just too cold for them, which is why I'm growing my tomatoes and peppers indoors right now. But if I were to take these outside, even if the temperatures were adequate for them, and just plant them and they went straight from this environment out into the ground, it's going to shock them and you will most likely lose all of the plants, or it's really going to weaken them. So doing a hardening off schedule is really key. That's where you're going to take them outdoors for a few hours for the first day, and then you bring them right back in. And then you slowly, I prefer to do about a 5 to 7 day period, sometimes a 10-day period. You slowly increase the amount of time that they're staying outside every day until they're out for 24 hours, and then you can plant them in their final spot. And my Brussels sprouts are actually on their day 1 of the hardening off schedule. So I'll take you outside and we'll take a peek at them. Okay, let's go outside and see the Brussels sprouts. So we're out here on our back deck, and here are my Brussels sprouts. Now, Brussels sprouts are a lot more cold hardy than, of course, tomatoes or peppers. So I'm starting these off on their hardening off schedule before the peppers and the tomatoes will get to come outside. So right now, it's a pretty mild day. We're about 50 degrees, even though at night we'll definitely get down into the 20s. So they are going to be outside in the temperature that's as close to the inside temperature as possible at the beginning of the hardening off schedule. So they're out here on my southern exposure back deck in the sunlight, and it's a little bit sheltered from the breeze, not too much of a breeze for the first time or too much of an extreme temperature change. So they'll stay out here for about another hour. They've been out here for an hour, and then they'll come inside. And then tomorrow, they will get to be out here for 3 to 4 hours. And each day, I will slowly increase the time that they're outside until they've been outside for a full 24 hours. And then they get to get planted right into the garden spot. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you hit subscribe and that you check out our How to Start Tomato Seeds Indoors video for the first crucial tips when you're just starting out your seeds. And I'm gonna have some pretty fun things coming up. You're gonna wanna make sure that you're on either our email list or that you're getting notified of our new videos that have to do with teaching you how to grow a year's worth of food. I can't wait to see you in the next video, and let me know in the comments below if you found this helpful and what things you are looking to grow and raise this year.